Tonight, police in Northland are investigating a shooting at an apartment complex. It happened at the apartments on Malley Drive, not far off I-25. Police are not sharing a lot of details at this point, only that they do not believe that there is a threat to neighbors. We're seeing a lot of officers with Northland police as well as Adams County deputies around those apartments. We'll update you as soon as we learn more. Been a busy Friday for weather up and down the Front Range. A landspout tornado touched down near DIA.
Dangerous flooding in Larimer County washed out roads again, and Denver shattered a 145-year-old heat record. It was a busy day. Danielle's been tracking it all, and we could see more of this weekend.
Yes, absolutely. So first things first, let's talk about the heat, because luckily we do have a brief break coming our way. But today, 101 officially out at DIA, marking our 5th 100-plus degree day so far this year, our 105th overall throughout Denver weather history. We're now sitting in the lower 80s around the metro area, some 50s and 60s, really cooling off up in the high country, with the clouds and thunderstorms also beginning to wind down. Of course, we were monitoring the threat for some flash flooding in and around Larimer County, the Cameron Peak burn scar. All of that has since expired, but I am still monitoring a few light showers up there. We'll continue to watch those for about the next 2 hours. Tomorrow and in through Sunday, we'll have a better chance for seeing a bit more flash flooding. So just kind of keep that in mind if you are going to be up into the mountains this weekend. Yes, we have a little bit of relief on the way, but how cool do those temperatures drop and for how long? I'll let you know in about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Danielle. As all this severe weather was moving through Colorado today, the National Weather Service was unable to use one of its important tools for telling people about weather threats. NWS couldn't send messages through FEMA's wireless emergency alert system, what we know as WEA. That's the system that sends an Amber Alert style message to all cell phones in a given area. It's the system that Boulder County was not able to use during the Marshall Fire. NWS does not decide whether to send out those on a case-by-case basis. Their system does it automatically when forecasters identify a severe threat. Today, the system was not working. NWS says it was an issue on FEMA's end. It's back working now. Local emergency managers at the county level did not have the same problem. The head of the Larimer Emergency Telephone Authority told us their system was working today.
The Broomfield High School student who died last week in a car crash was identified today. The Boulder County Coroner's Office identified him as 17-year-old Michael DePalma, who went by Dominic. The crash happened last Thursday on Highway 287. 5 teens were in the car when it crashed with the semi. All 5 were taken to the hospital where DePalma later died. His family posted an obituary today. They say Dominic was a passionate soccer player, and he and his mom had an unbreakable bond. They described him as a loyal friend and an exceptional older brother. His family has set up the Dominic DePalma Memorial Soccer Scholarship in his honor. The scholarship will provide access to soccer for other young adults who are just as passionate about the sport as he was.
A former Loveland police officer is going to spend a little more than a month in jail for failing to stop the violent arrest of a 73-year-old with dementia. This officer is one of the first to ever be sentenced under the state's failure to intervene law. Daria Jalali was one of 2 Loveland police officers who arrested Karen Garner last year. Garner, who has dementia, was picked up after leaving a Walmart because she didn't pay for $13 worth of items. Another officer, Austin Hopp, pleaded guilty to assault for pushing Garner to the ground, breaking her shoulder. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Jalali will spend 45 days in jail with 3 years probation for failing to stop the actions of the other officer.
The message is that we will hold law enforcement accountable, just like we will any other criminal actors. And that extends to failing to intervene, that extends to failing to report.
Garner's family settled a civil lawsuit against Loveland last year for $3 million.
Colleges across Colorado were forced to lock down or close their campuses today because of emailed threats. Police say the threats were just a hoax. Westminster police say people at 5 different community colleges got an email around midnight. Those colleges were Arapahoe Community College, Community College of Aurora, Community College of Denver, Front Range Community College, and Red Rocks Community College. Police wouldn't share the content of the threat, but it was enough to get the campuses to close down or operate on a lockout. Investigators say a person sent the threatening emails using somebody else's name.
There was information contained in the threat about a specific person saying, I'm this person, I'm making the threat, here's what I'm going to do. So we quickly were able to contact that person in person and determine that the person had not sent the threats.
This even impacted campuses that were not targeted today. On the Auraria campus, MSU Denver and University of Colorado Denver also closed down. CU Boulder did not receive threats, but closed for the day just as a precaution.
A medical examiner in Georgia says former Bronco Demaryius Thomas died of complications from a seizure disorder. Thomas had had seizures for a few years after a car crash in 2019. We learned earlier this year that Thomas also had stage 2 CTE, the brain disease caused by repeated hits to the head. The medical examiner said they could not determine whether CTE caused Thomas's seizures or whether they played any role in his death. DT retired from the NFL last June. He hadn't played since 2019. He died at his home in Georgia last December, just before his 34th birthday.
Inflation is still impacting just about everyone and everything. That includes the prices you see when you go out to eat. 9 News reporter Luis De Leon takes a closer look at how food prices are changing.
We probably push out about 25,000 pounds a day.
Much like a conveyor belt, a kink in a delicate system can take a toll.
It's hitting everything that we buy.
Consider inflation that kink.
And it's never easy to raise prices. You feel like you're taking perhaps an unfair share of the pie.
Richard Schneider is with Raquelitas Tortillas in Denver, a tortilla supplier for more than 1,000 restaurants, hotels, and more. The domino effect of inflation, he says, impacts them too, starting with the farms where they get their product.
The price of fuel to get the tractors out in the field, so you go out and harvest the wheat, now you've got to take it to the grain elevator, you've got to take it to the mill. In this case, the mill, somebody's got to pick it up and bring it to us. But when they go beyond a certain point, we have to pass that on.
In their case, they raised flour tortilla prices by 10% in June, a hike that their customers, restaurants, have to pass down. Wholesale food prices increased 13.4% in June of this year compared to last year. Menu prices up 7.7%, according to the National Restaurant Association. Being mindful of price hikes, Schneider says, is key.
But there are times, and these are those times, you must raise prices to remain a supplier and remain in business. I think there's more opportunities than ever, but you've got to be a significantly better operator than ever. You've really got to, if you were watching your food costs quarterly, that may not be enough. You need to be checking them literally every week and making those adjustments weekly.
Luis De Leon reporting for us. The Colorado Restaurant Association also says labor costs have been a serious issue. Spokesperson told us wages in Colorado restaurants have increased by an average of 20% since 2020. They say even when operators do increase menu prices to offset inflation, the cost of goods is regularly outpacing any gains.
As we realize it's not your college dream, right? And so how can we do this the best way that we possibly can?
CSU students expecting to live in a dorm room have ended up in a hotel.